For more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
All together for the first time in 2 weeks, we say good morning, Winnipeg, good morning, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live this morning on all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. With Dave Minuk, with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, getting you set for this morning's stupid-ass start time of 11:30 Central between the Jets and the Carolina Hurricanes. We are also all about the upcoming NHL trade deadline. It is 6 days away. Friday will be when the buzzer sounds and no more trades can be made for this coming year. It's a very busy Saturday in store. Gentlemen, great to see you. Great to be back with you. Don't remember the last time we went 2 weeks without being all three of us together on a program.
Yeah, it's been a while, but that's what happens when you're gallivanting around the southern U.S. and Dave M is enjoying a little sunshine. I'm the only person that stayed here and literally weathered the storm. Like, we're getting like sleet, we're getting hail, snow, we're getting like +8 temperatures. I thought I was maybe going to go to the beach yesterday. But yeah, it's been a little while, like you mentioned, 2 weeks. And we also have to throw in that Moose game at 2:00. The Moose play the Calgary Wranglers. We'll have Dave M at Canada Life Center doing a live on location Jets postgame show because we have worlds colliding this afternoon, Dave.
I know, I'm not happy about it, Eddie. You're right. Texas Stars, though. Texas Stars played Calgary.
Texas.
Yeah, you're right. They played Calgary last week, and this week they've got a Texas Stars, which, we just saw the Jets play the Stars, and now we'll see the Stars of Texas AHL version here in Winnipeg.
I will give you credit, though, because you were saying at Boston Pizza on Thursday that the expectation was that Logan Stankoven would be back with the Stars, the Texas Stars, and he was reassigned to the Texas Stars yesterday.
I know, but I don't.
Do you think it's a paper transaction?
Yeah, the discussion yesterday at Moose practice was whether it was a paper transaction or not, because they're, whether they're just doing some cap jumping and stuff like that. So the Moose are hoping that he's going to San Jose to play with the NHL version of the Stars, Ezzy, and not the AHL version of the Stars here in Winnipeg.
I wonder if that, guys, has anything to do with Chris Tanev, because his salary was retained. But I wonder if, like Drew said, I wonder if this is just to get a little bit of cap relief, and then they're going to call him back up. Because if anybody watched the Jets Stars on Thursday, obviously we all did here. Most people did. I mean, Stankoven, he's really good. Dave knows that because he was leading the AHL in scoring. But no Tyler Seguin on Thursday night, and Stankoven. He's only played, I think, 4 games, but he's really good.
Yeah.
He is. He's a good young...
That steal on Mason Appleton was very nice. That which set up, I think, the third goal.
His own goal. That's the goal he got.
No, I know, but it's created the opportunity for that goal is what I'm saying. And so he's a good young player, and the Dallas Stars have a lot of good young players, a lot of good young talent. But this isn't Stars lunch, Ezzy. This is well, it's not Jets lunch either. Jets brunch.
Yes, exactly. A quick note out of Vancouver, just announced seconds ago, the Canucks have signed Elias Pettersson to an 8-year contract extension. The terms, I don't see them just yet, but there was some talk as to how that was going to play itself out.
It's got to be 12 million a year, right?
I would think it would have to be somewhere pretty high up there, but anyways, that has just been announced just a couple minutes ago. So as more details come out, we will update you. Not that this is going to turn into Canucks coffee, as the case may be, but in any event, there's some breaking news from the NHL world. It's going to be a busy week in the NHL world, and we'll have it all covered on illegalcurve.com and, of course, here on our YouTube channel. As we have this morning's edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, we have this afternoon's edition of the Illegal Curve Postgame Show, and then again, we have Sunday night's edition of the Illegal Curve Postgame Show. Let's start with the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, they're in Carolina. It doesn't get any easier. They had the poor performance on Thursday against the Dallas Stars, and now you're playing against another very good team in the Carolina Hurricanes, and it's very questionable as to who's going to be in the Winnipeg Jets lineup for tonight. As we know, Gabe Vilardi, Dave indicating there's 4 game time decisions. Gabe Vilardi didn't play the third period. Seems like I'm safe in saying that barring something unforeseen, it's unlikely he's going to be in the lineup today. And then
we should mention, Drew, he wasn't on the ice for practice yesterday.
Right. He wasn't on the ice for the practice yesterday, and neither was Sean Monahan. Dave, you'll name them. You'll tell me if I'm wrong. Monahan, Ehlers, and who was the other one that was
Jason Appleton.
Jason Appleton. So 4 key drivers of this Winnipeg Jets team are very much up in the air, their status for this morning's contest in Carolina, and that's certainly not the team that you want to be shorthanded for. But the Winnipeg Jets, as we sit here, guys, 6 days away from the trade deadline, having watched Thursday's game where the Jets stepped up in competition against Dallas and couldn't meet the challenge, and based on their performance, which has been successful in terms of wins and losses, but I would say relatively middling in terms of actual on-ice performance, has that changed your perception or your vision of what the Winnipeg Jets need to do in the lead up to the trade deadline 5 days away, 6 days away from now, Ezzy?
A bit, I think. And I don't think anybody's going to be surprised when we start talking about, the Jets' need for a winger or a top 4/top 6 defenseman. That hasn't changed. But
right.
I think you do have to be concerned that, the Jets haven't really turned this around yet, despite winning 7 of 8 games going into the game on Thursday night, right, boys? Mm-hmm. So I'm not at all surprised that the Stars won, not just because they've already defeated the Jets twice this year. I think I've said this to you guys. I think the Stars, for me, are the Stanley Cup favorite right now. And I realize that there's other good teams, right? Like Vancouver's good, Colorado's good, and then the East, you've got the Rangers, you've got the Bruins.
Right.
The Hurricanes are a team that, I wouldn't discount. I haven't even mentioned the Florida Panthers, but I look at the Dallas Stars, and they were already a Stanley Cup favorite for me. And then you add in Chris Tanev, and you really don't have to give up much. I know you guys talked about it on Thursday night at Boston Pizza, right? A second-round pick and a prospect to get Chris Tanev to a group that already includes Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, Thomas Harley, Ryan Suter. Like, they've already got a really good group of defensemen there, right, boys? So not surprised the Jets lost to the Stars on Thursday night. Obviously, they weren't good in the first period, but if you want to just go back, guys, 4 or 5 games, I think there have been warning signs that, this team is struggling at even strength. And it's really, as Dave has talked about, the special teams, the power play that's been propping this team up. But you go back to those games against the Hawks and the Coyotes that the Jets needed overtime to beat those teams, right? Like, the Jets have not been playing at that level they were playing back in, mid-December, late December, early January, since the player all-star break. Yes, they've strung some wins together, Dave, but a lot of these, even going back to that 1-0 win at home over San Jose, right? Like, you got beat pretty bad by the Flames on the road. Like, there have been some games where, the Jets have been lucky to win those games. Like, I would point to those, the Chicago-Arizona game where, you could have easily lost a point in both of those games. So I think the Jets are absolutely going to be in the market for a scoring winger and a defenseman. I have no idea. Is that going to be Sean Walker? It could be. The Flyers could also re-sign Sean Walker, right,
That's
Dave?
the report, Ezzy. That was the report
So,
yesterday.
A lot of Jets fans, have turned their attention to a guy like Alex Carrier on the Predators, right shot defenseman. The only thing is, guys, the Predators are currently in a playoff spot.
And have won 7 straight.
Exactly. So they might want to keep Carrier. So it's really hard to figure out who the Jets are going to acquire. I'm all in for the Jets acquiring Pavel Buchnevich. I just have no idea if the Jets want to give up those young assets to acquire him.
You know what, I saw a tweet yesterday, or an X or whatever the hell it's called. I'll give credit to at Avco Cup on Twitter for this one. The last 15 games played by the Winnipeg Jets, their expected goals for percentage is sub 50%, which tells you, and they're it tells you where that the Jets have not been a solid team in the last 15 games. They've been getting wins and they've been banking points, and you can't ever take that away from them, Dave. But the performance on the ice has been not up to par. It hasn't been what it was before. For the first time since game 17, the Jets expected goals share has dropped below 50%. So it's not, yes, for a while it's a blip. And yes, you're still winning some games, but again, you're going back to sort of the not sustainable method of winning games that we've seen for so many years. Whereas earlier this season, for a long period of this season, the Jets were winning games and controlling games. That's the difference now, is that they are still winning a fair number of games, but they're not in control of those games like they once were.
Yeah, and it comes down to what Ezzy talked about. It's the fact that the power play is firing again, and they've got world-class goaltending. So you've got world-class goaltending, which you can rely upon, and you've got the special teams, which look. I mean, let's be real for a second. The Jets' power play wasn't firing. They've probably lost, at least 3 or 4 of those games in that last 9-game stretch. They don't, because the power play is working. So to me, it is a function of this Jets team is not playing the same brand of hockey. Remember, Rick Bowness's big point was that this is now the norm. The fallback, not this current situation, but the fallback for the Jets has been the style that Rick Bowness and his coaching staff have instilled in them. They don't go back. It's not last year where they went back to what Paul Maurice and coaching staff had done. Now the norm should be what Rick Bowness and their staff have done. And the question was whether it was sustainable, whether players would kind of, it's kind of like, I don't want to use too many horse racing analogies, but I don't want Peter to get upset with us, but it's, can you rein these teams in? Can you rein these players in? Can you keep them in that tight system for the entirety of an 82 game schedule, especially guys who are offensive, guys like Kyle Connor, guys like Mark Scheifele, so that Nikolai Ehlers, can you get them to play that brand for 82 games? Now we know, based on what we've seen, that it's not really sustainable, and that these guys, aren't able to kind of stay within that. And look, the reality is, if you look at it was funny because Mark Scheifele hit the 50-point mark, I think it was 2 games ago. And you're like, okay, Mark Scheifele's got 50 points, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Then you look at like Nikita Kucherov. He had like 102. The Jets don't have a lot of I think someone tweeted at me and said the Jets, have the 49th and 75th top scorers in the NHL right now.
In the top 100.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 in the top 100 is an incredibly low number.
Well, yeah, Josh Morrissey's the other at 75. So and again, you don't have to win with this, Ezzy, with this kind of goaltending and, in theory, defensive structure. You don't need guys, it's kind of like you don't need a power play to be a top 5. You just need it to be, in that sort of middle, but same sort of idea. You don't need all your guys to be like top 10 of scoring, but you need some a little more contribution, which they're getting. But again, like I said, it's coming at the absence now, or the sacrifice of the 5-on-5 play. So we've seen a real downturn in the way this team has played the last 10 games.
Exactly. And I think, you're not only concerned about how the Scheifele line is played at 5-on-5, but you're also concerned about, the Lowry, Niederreiter, Appleton line. That line has struggled at times, even though that has been your most consistent line by far, right? So I think all signs point to that Chevy is going to acquire a winger. We had the comment up from Jason Growlnick earlier, like Frank Vetrano on the Anaheim Ducks. He's an option. We've talked about Vladimir Tarasenko. We've talked about Jordan Eberle. The thing with Eberle, guys, is he has a 16-team no-trade list. So you kind of have to assume Winnipeg's on that list. I don't think that's unrealistic. I think, and he could waive it, Drew, right? Like he could always waive it. But I think Eberle, to me, makes a lot of sense on like Edmonton going back there, or maybe even Colorado. Like I think a lot of teams are going to be after him, but that's the type of guys we're talking about. Pavel,
they need to go back and get Niall Yakupov, and they need to go back and get get the Bay, the
Taylor Hall,
the number 1 draft picks back together. Get the party back together.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Kenny Weeb and Mike McIntyre in their Dump and Chase column in the Winnipeg Free Press yesterday, they had who did they have on
Adam
that?
Larson.
Adam Larson. Yeah, I forgot there for a second.
Yeah.
They had Adam Larson there, who of course was traded for Taylor Hall, the 1-for-1 famous trade, right? I don't know about Larson, but I mean, I think the reality
in Seattle,
is,
so that's why they
yes.
they identified him, because
Yeah.
the Kraken are not going to make the playoffs this year,
Right.
which is why people are interested in a lot of those guys.
Well,
Brandon
and then a lot of
Tanev
people are
also on Seattle.
speculating that next week the Jets play the Kraken twice, and as you know, for
Yeah.
travel purposes, a lot of times NHL teams will make trades. They'll wait to make the trade when the player is already in the city that they're going to be in, right? So obviously, we're not going to speculate that the Jets are going to get Eberle here, boys.
Yeah.
But I think, look, Chevy's already all in. When you acquire Sean Monahan and you give up a first-round pick, you're already all in. So all signs point to the Jets making more moves here, and I think
you have to be more all in. Is I think what this week has taught us, or what the recent stretch of play has, I think, indicated, is that the Monahan move, which looks like a good move, isn't sufficient on its own. You can see just by watching the games, watching Thursday's game, watching the Jets' performance as of late, that right now they are a step behind the Dallas Stars when it comes to, if the Jets and the Stars played in a 7-game series, the Jets wouldn't win that series, barring injuries and everything else. And yes. But right now, the Dallas Stars are a more talented team than the Winnipeg Jets.
I think the only way they win that series, and this could happen,
is if
Hellebuyck has a couple shutouts and he plays, even better than he's played all year long. But I agree with you, Drew. Like, just look at the depth. They bring in a guy like Logan Stankoven.
Yeah.
And they didn't even need to bring him in. He's so talented, right? And then they've got, who's it, Dave? Maverick Bork is another top prospect that plays in the Stars system. So and the thing is, look at Roope Hintz, look at Jason Robertson, look at Miro Heiskanen, Ottinger. They're young. Like, this is not an old team. Obviously, Joe Pavelski, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Ryan Suter, these guys are older. I think they actually are the oldest team in the league. But if you look at the Stars, they're set up very well for the future.
But, the difference is, I don't think the Jets are going to be able to completely bridge the gap between them and the Dallas Stars in terms of, talent level. But the Jets need to reduce that gap. And that's why I think you have to be still in the market to make some moves in the lead up to Friday's trade deadline, because you can't win the West. The Jets they're going to have to go through Dallas at some point in time. Yep. I mean, unless there's a stunning first round upset, and that would be a stunning upset from my perspective. If the Stars were to get knocked out in the first round.
That's why you want to finish first. That's the impetus to finish first, right? Because it's either going to be the Jets versus Dallas, or it's going to be the Jets versus Colorado, or one of those.
If you finish 2-3,
right?
If you finish first,
you would rather play Dallas in the second round as opposed to the first round, obviously.
No question about it. And for the record, folks, as much as we're praising Dallas and everything else, look, the Jets are still in the driver's seat when it comes to winning the Central Division. Exactly. They are 2 points behind the Dallas Stars. The Jets have the tiebreaker, and they have 4 games in hand. So it's there for the Jets to take. The Jets should still be, thinking first overall in the Central Division is easily attainable. But the thing, when you have this deadline 6 days away from now, when you're rapidly approaching, this is your roster for the remainder of the season, by and large, you need to find the way to sort of make those tweaks and make those additions at this point in time. And I don't think we're talking bottom of the roster kind of additions. That's not what the Jets need right now. It's not a depth forward who might be able to swap in on your fourth line.
They
already have that. They have those guys. They have AJ.
Well, they need a sniper. They need reinforcement in the top 6. Like Alex Iafallo, I think, has done a good job. He's added more energy, a little more tenacity to that second line. Like, people, again, we haven't even gotten into Cole Perfetti, but he's actually played, I think, Nemesnikov and Perfetti and Morgan Barron, they have actually looked fine. If that's a fourth line, those guys were all third line guys. Pardon me. Obviously, Perfetti was second line, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Nemesnikov was centering the second line, and Morgan Barron, Dave, was a staple of the third line. So if that's your fourth line, I have no problem with that. I think you just want a little bit more offense. You want a goal scorer. That's why we're talking about a guy like Frank Vetrano, right? We're talking about, I know this guy brings up a mixed reaction, but like a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko.
He can
score.
Or if you
want to, like a Anthony Duclair, who had 30 goals for the Panthers a couple of years ago. Like these are the types of guys we're talking about. And then obviously once you get into defense, then yes, I mean, the market isn't great. Now that Chris Tanev is off the market, it's basically Sean Walker, Matt Dumba. I don't think the Jets are in on Noah Hannafin at all, but like, I think Sean Walker would fit in nicely, but again, he might re-sign in Philly. So we don't want to get everyone's hopes up.
Well, and that was the funny thing yesterday, because they talked about that, how suddenly, all of a sudden, it went from he was an option for the Flyers to trade as to, the Flyers may be signing him. And the only question now is whether they'll give him a 5-year term or not. So that option may have disappeared, or it could be simply a Flyers team that's looking to increase his value and get a little bit more. And we know that the Flyers have heavily scouted Winnipeg. So there's a better than good chance that those two teams are having discussions, because you're always having conversations, especially around this time of the year. You got to have those conversations. You got to pick up the phone, then you put down the phone, then you pick up the phone, and then you put it down. And so
what else do you do with the phone?
Hopefully you do some talking while
you do the hokey pokey with the phone and turn yourself around.
Yeah. But I mean, look,
Dave is actually the only person that I talked to. I was telling Naomi this. I obviously speak to my significant other on the phone, but like aside from Naomi,
Laura and I don't talk on the phone. Very rarely.
Dave and I like to have a nice communique over the phone, but like honestly, I only, maybe my dad and Dave, those are the two people that I talk to regularly on the phone. Obviously, Drew has blocked my number, so I can't even text him. But it's nice to talk like old school on the phone. Like I miss the days of talking on my cordless phone.
Cordless phone. I thought you were going to go, say a corded phone that you twisted around your finger while you were talking.
Rotary
about, dial. In high school, the which girls you liked or something along those lines.
Drew remembers when they still had to connect your phone calls via
where you had a party line, back in the day where there were party lines. People couldn't have their own individual phone line.
Yeah.
That's how old I am.
Anyway, so I think that the Jets play of late, the fact that it's become a lot looser.
Yes.
And Rick Bowness can come and stand before us and say, we didn't have our best game and we played a little loose, and we have, that. And he's not making any changes, right? He really hasn't made significant personnel changes. So we haven't seen again, other than injury potentially disrupting.
I was going to say that, Dave. It looks like there's a good chance Gus Bus comes in today.
Well, or Rasmus Kupari, or both, based on the fact
or you two doofuses get into the lineup. There's 4 guys might be out.
And worth noting, nobody was recalled from the Moose. The Moose practiced yesterday in Winnipeg, and everybody was on the ice for the Moose. So it wasn't as if there were any recalls made. And obviously, if the Jets, have an extra injured forward, they've got the 2 that can come in from who haven't been playing, in Gustin and Kupari, and Logan Stanley. Obviously, they need to go 11-7. But ultimately, I don't think 3 of those 4 are going to not be playing. But we won't know that, unfortunately, till just as the show ends, which is when morning skate gets underway in Carolina. So
not morning skate, game day skate.
Oh, sorry.
Pre-game skate. It's not the morning skate, it's the pre-game skate.
Warm-up skate at 11 o'clock. So
such a stupid start time for a hockey game.
That's why I said to you at Boston Pizza, I said that I don't recall a game starting at 11:30. I remember noon games, but 11:30 to me is just a bizarre.
Anyways, you better believe that I remember those noon games, boys, because when we were on the radio,
6
and there was a noon
time,
game,
baby.
Yeah, we used to, because Huss and Rick, and then before that, Hustler and Lawless, they used to start their show at 9:30 or 10, so we'd have to go on at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m.
They were always 3 hours. So Hustler, Huss and Party are always 3 hours before puck drop, and then Kevin O would start with the pregame show an hour before puck drop, which meant on a Saturday when the game was at noon, we started at 6 a.m.
Which until I insisted.
How did we used to do that? And we used to do that before we had kids, Drew.
I just assumed that you just went all night long as it.
I probably did go all night long sometimes back in the days.
I don't want to deviate too far, because obviously we've got a lot to talk about in today's show. But I do remember one time Ez picked me up, and of course that was when we had to drive to the studio on Pembina. So Ez picked me up at 5:30 in the morning, and we're cruising towards in River Heights, and all of a sudden I'm like, what's that guy doing? As he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm pretty sure that guy's breaking into cars. I'm like, calling the police.
That's right. You guys caught somebody breaking into cars. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So anyways, it's just
then we actually realized it was Hustler breaking into it.
It's actually Hustler breaking into his own car. He couldn't remember where he put his keys. But no, look, it's and then of course I think we insisted on only doing 2-hour shows. We're like, you know what? It's fine. We'll start at 7. I don't think anybody's getting up to listen to us. I don't think anybody was getting up to listen to us at 7.
Gordy's saying, for those on the podcast, he's saying, I like an early game here, and it's kind of fun to watch the Jets and have breakfast. So just make yourself some hotcakes, make yourself some nice strong coffee, and watch the Jets game.
Yeah, and you'll have your entire afternoon to yourself after the Illegal Curve post-game show. Think about the hours you're finding in the course of this day.
I hope Gordy would be joining us to watch the Moose and the Texas Stars. So
there you go. That's going on as well. It's in any event, as you can tell, folks, it's a very busy Saturday. The Illegal Curve hockey show going on right now. Illegal Curve post-game show right around 2:15 this afternoon. Dave M's going to be at the Moose game as well. So lots going on. So keep it locked here on our YouTube channel and the website, illegalcurve.com, all day long for your latest Jets and Moose news, audio, video, etc.
I just want to say one more thing, Drew, back to what we were talking about with what the Jets might do before the trade deadline. Nick Seeler is another guy that's on the trade bait board. He's a left shot defenseman. So I don't know if the Jets, if he could play the right side, Dave, because we obviously know the Jets are stronger on the left side. But the other guy, the more and more I talk about it, and we'll get into it with Scotty Billeck here because he wrote about the trade deadline for the Winnipeg Sun. Alex Carrier, to me, probably is number one on my list after Sean Walker. He just makes a lot of sense. And then he moves Neil Pionk down, and then maybe that moves Nate Schmidt to your 7th defenseman. But Carrier, to me, would be a big addition. But again, there's rumors that he might sign a contract and the Predators might not move him because the Predators are currently in a wild card spot. So again, it seems like all of the possible trades, the trading partners that the Jets might make a move with, those teams are exactly
11.6 million each year is the cap hit for Elias Pettersson, who just signed an 8-year contract extension with
he's
Vancouver
a superstar.
Canucks.
I'm not that surprised by that number.
5th highest in the league, right behind Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, and Artemi Panarin. So there's the news out of Vancouver.
Interesting, though, that there was some discussion about a potential Carolina Hurricanes Canucks thing before they got those conversations going back with Peterson's agent.
It sounds like it was a bit of a difficult negotiation, and they did explore the possibility of a trade, but they made the decision to sign him instead. When we come back, as Ezzy alluded to, our good friend Scott Billeck joins us for more Jets talk, more trade deadline discussion, more everything on this Saturday morning. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. We keep the good times rolling.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly, see lindenmarketdental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Fanalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fanalytics.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake. After a great game or great deal, it shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at ZappiaGroup.com.
Bottom of hour number one, Dave M has disappeared into a beautiful chaise lounger there, I think, if that's what that is.
Here he comes.
He's sauntering, and he's slowly sauntering back in. Obviously, had somewhere more important to be during the commercial break, but that's okay. We'll let it slide on this one time and one time only. I can see Scotty
Chatting with Ezzy. What do you want?
You want maybe chat less with Ezzy to get
I was
back in
comfortable.
time. I know. Let's bring in Scotty Billeck. You see him laughing behind the scenes. Scotty, good morning, buddy. Nice to see you. How are things?
Good to see that the show's running smoothly already.
The smooth as butter. You know, that's how we do it here. Hey, look, Scotty, we did the live on location show at Boston Pizza on Thursday, and it went off without a hitch, and that's without our producer Tim being there. So we've basically banked the points like the Jets have been banking points by successfully pulling off a live on location show for the second consecutive time without actually having any expertise or knowledge.
Well, Drew, there was the one awkward moment when one of the servers asked why you weren't wearing pants, and then you said that's how you normally do the shows at home. So there was a little bit awkward. Then someone had to give Drew a pair of pants. So aside from that, though, it went really well.
Yeah, threw him off his game a little bit.
Yeah, anyways, forget it. Not
gonna I don't want to.
Just keep going. Let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets. It's game time in 2 hours, as we're all used to on a Saturday morning, and they
really normal start time, super normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever written the game? Have you ever written game story this early, or started a game story this early?
Yeah, because I think I've been on the road when they've done a
noon,
like a nooner. Yeah. Which is technically 1 p.m. Because I don't think they've ever done a nooner. I'm trying to remember in the Central Division, but I think they've done it in the Eastern Conference a few times.
The earliest home start that's ever been is they did some 1 o'clock home starts, 1 p.m. Central, but this would be the earliest Central time start tonight.
Yeah, it coincides with Hockey Day in Finland, right? I think that's what it is.
Oh, is that why it's happening?
Yeah, because the Hockey Day in Finland, and because Carolina has 4 Finns on it, I think this is the prime time game in Finland, if I'm not mistaken.
Call up Ville Heinola.
Yeah. So I don't know if they have any other games, NHL games today that are starting this early. But yeah, this is definitely a Hockey Day in Finland game. So
Finnish fans will love watching Christian Vesalainen this afternoon.
At least there's a reason for it. So thank you for that. Your appearance is already worthwhile. You've explained it. You've explained why this game is so early. You wrote about it after Thursday's game. The Stars gave a wake up call. I know you don't write the headlines, but that's the headline on the article on the Winnipeg Sun. Stars deliver wake up call to subpar Jets. And we sort of, the performance on the ice, while successful in the wins column, has not been great in terms of the process.
Yeah.
Based on Thursday's result, do you think that maybe impacts Kevin Cheveldayoff's approach to the trade deadline this coming Friday?
As in, do they?
We're not at the Dallas Stars level. How do we get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think. I wouldn't say Thursday kind of showed Winnipeg's true colors, because I don't think that's the case. I just think you win 7 of 8, and you're sort of not as happy as you would have been. Here's what I felt. I felt like the Jets were more happy in their 5-game losing streak with their game than they were winning 7 of 8. Right? And that's it sounds like a weird thing to say, because you take 14 of 16 points in one stretch and you take 0 of the possible 10 in the other. And I think they got 1 point in there because they went to overtime against Toronto. But either way, to answer your question, I don't think it changes what, I think it this last little bit, it's really kind of shown possibly where they need to upgrade. I hesitate to touch that second line right now, but one of the things that Rick Bowness has said all year is that he wants that second line to be a scoring line, to score. And Alex Iafallo has stabilized it in terms of its defensive play. Still not sure it's a scoring line, although he does have the 1 goal off the Nikolai Ehlers pass off the end boards against, I believe it was Arizona. So, there is that, I suppose. But I think there's still, I think because Cole Perfetti has kind of regressed a bit, let's say, in his second year, he's found it a bit of a struggle. I think that they've shown that they need to have more scoring. So I wonder if there's a top six winger in there. And now, after the last game, I'm kind of wondering, okay, are they going back to kind of the defensive side of the game? Because it was poor at times, obviously. You look at those first three goals, one's a giveaway by Perfetti, obviously. Not great. You can't really blame that on the defense. The second goal, people need to understand that Joe Pavelski is legendary at tipping the puck. And so allowing him to get a stick on, great players are going to do that. And he made a nice play. But I didn't think the Jets were hard enough on Pavelski to kind of allow that. And then sort of a bad line change. I think the Jets just need to sort of get back to playing the right way again. I hate
the structure has diminished.
Yeah, exactly. The how many? We saw a couple odd man rushes. The early breakaway. I think it was Mason Marchman who got the early breakaway in that game. Those are things that we weren't seeing pre-Christmas break, right? Ever since this Christmas thing, and I know a lot of fans have been wondering, well, why is this team any different than last year's team and all that? It is different, but I think, part of the reason why it's different is because they're winning these games, whereas last year they would have lost a lot of these games. But you can see that it's still part of the game that they still need to catch, and it's not there yet. The 5-on-5 play is slipped. It slipped quite a bit, and so their power plays bailed them out on a bunch of games. Their penalty kill has still been pretty good for the most part. And they've gotten some good goaltending, obviously, with Connor Hellebuck and even Laurent Brossoit, who doesn't play a ton, but has given them good starts. But they're just not. Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't really know. After last game, it was there was a measuring stick, and you were hoping to see the Jets, have they evolved since those early Dallas games? And I would say the third Dallas game, the one a couple nights ago, that was the worst game that they've played against Dallas this year. And that's not what you want to see it's March now. It's March 2nd, I believe, today. That's not what you want to see at this point of the year. But does it change Kevin Cheveldayoff's approach? I think there's a couple things in that game. You probably wanted to see the Jets a little more physical, and they started off the game trying to be, right. Like Adam Lowry bowls over Delandry again, and then that whole first shift tied Delandry. It took a lot of punishment because Brendan Dillon then trucked him as well. Those are good things, but they just didn't really kind of keep it up, and then you get down essentially 3-0 or 3-1. And then that's the game, and it's sort of over at that point because Dallas is so good at just shutting that game down, and the Jets needed a little more offense. So yeah, it's hard to answer the question because I still think that there's a lot of belief that this team can do what they did in the first half of the season. I think there's been spurts in the last little bit where they've really kind of shut games down again. But yeah, I still think they're looking for a top six winger. That's my opinion, and probably some depth on defense. And I wonder a little bit if, I don't know if it's a bit of a shakeup or anything like that, but I wonder if they need to kind of inject maybe something more than a 6th or 7th defenseman into that lineup to kind of get people back, kind of pulling in the same direction. I think, and Dylan DeMello said it after the game, against Dallas. He sort of said this is a wake-up call. This is the Jets found out where they stand against the Dallas Stars, and they might still have. The Winnipeg still controls their destiny of winning the Central Division right now. you either playing Colorado in the first round, or you're playing, whoever's the 7th or 8th in the wild card.
Nashville
at the moment. Yeah. And so there's that at the moment. You'd probably rather that. You'd probably rather Dallas and Colorado duke it out in the first round and kind of, for the lack of a better term, kind of kill each other, right? And then you can kind of pick up the scraps. But you watch that Dallas game, and Dallas had played 7 games and 11 nights there, and
looked pretty good.
Yeah, and they looked pretty good, and then they still didn't have Chris Tanev in the lineup either, and so
or Tyler Seguin.
Or Tyler Seguin, and they didn't make life hard on Jake Ottinger. Like I remember maybe 2 saves that Jake Ottinger really kind of had to bear down on in that game, and that's just not good enough. So yeah, I think it's more Rick Bowness called it self-inflicted. Sometimes I tend to agree with him, but probably not in the same way that he agrees with it in terms of the lines, the way the lines are looking and stuff like that. But
it's got
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
That leads nicely into my question, because I thought you had a great article. I think it was Thursday. Correct me if I'm wrong. The article where you were comparing Cole Perfetti to Mark Scheifele,
right?
Comparing them in the sense that they had similar struggles earlier in their career. I think that's kind of what the comparison really centered around. And I thought you made some really interesting points because, and you pointed this out in the article, and Dave would know because he was at then Bell MTS Iceplex watching a 19-year-old Cole Perfetti play in the AHL. That was a very unique situation because 19-year-olds usually aren't able, for those who don't know, 19-year-olds typically don't play in the AHL. And so that was different because Scheifele had the extra 2 years in Barrie. But it's crazy to me, Scotty, that you even had to come out with that article, because obviously, a lot of Jets fans are criticizing Perfetti. And what I liked most about your article is that, you mentioned that, Jets fans have to get, and everyone that follows this Jets team has to get used to Perfetti being on a 4th line or possibly out of the lineup, because, if the Jets acquire, a Frank Vetrano or Jordan Eberle or whoever is out there as a possible trade deadline acquisition, Perfetti could end up finding himself, on the bench in the press box, because if the Jets acquire a top 6 forward, most likely that means Alex Iafallo then goes back to his 4th line wing role.
Yeah, and I wonder. I wonder if we would have seen Cole Perfetti in the press box today, if not for the injury to Gabe Vilardi, right? And it sounds like Gabe Vilardi is not going to play today. He didn't practice yesterday in Raleigh, and so I wonder. Well, even if it's not the case, I don't know if you could. I don't think you could really bank on Cole Perfetti right now, like as it stands, regardless of if his struggles are not uncommon for a player of his age and how long he's been in the league and all those things. Like I don't think that I don't think you can, you struggle to kind of hold it against him because it's growing pains, right? But at the same time, if you're trying to win, and the Jets they're in a good spot, and they could win the division and all those types of things. I think you have to make a difficult choice here, and I think the difficult choice is probably bringing in a top 6 center, or sorry, top 6 winger. And it pushes people down the lineup, and then it kind of pushes people out of the lineup. And I don't want to say that anybody's giving up on Cole Perfetti right now, because I don't think that's the case. It's one of those times in a franchise where you have a young prospect who's very promising, has shown a lot of promise, but at the same time, like, this is the difference between he's
21 years old, Scott. Like, people have to remember he's really young,
right? And that's it, right? I think he's either 21 or 22 now, but yeah, he is. There you go, 22. But that's exactly it. Really, we have these high expectations of Gabe Vilardi, and Gabe Vilardi is only 23, right? And obviously he's played a little bit more in the league, but he's also had a lot of injury problems and that sort of thing. The thing, Cole Perfetti got robbed of a lot of hockey, right? Like, the OHL season never played in his draft year. So there's that. Well, he played a little bit and then it got shut down. So there's that. Then the year after that, I believe they didn't have any hockey, but he was lucky enough to be able to go to the AHL. He played really well in the AHL, which kind of maybe was almost a hindrance in the end. Like he played so well that it was like, okay, well, this kid's good enough. And because the loophole was created due to COVID, that CHL players that were drafted, I think the rule in the end was if you're drafted in the first round, you could go and play in the AHL. I think that's what it was, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right, Scotty.
Yeah, it was something like that. And so he just kind of became a kind of a victim of his own success, I guess, a little bit. And then he had a really good year last year, but he had 2 season-ending injuries in a row. He had a good season up until last year. Like we were talking Calder Trophy last year with him. He was kind of in that race with Matty Beniers in Seattle, going kind of point per point. This year, I mean, he started off really well. Like, I mean, he hasn't had a point or maybe 1 assist in his last 14 games. He had 30 points in 14 fewer games. 30 points in 14 fewer games than last season. Like he was on a good clip. He already scored 14 goals, which is 6 more than he had in his rookie season. But I think just the game, the rigors of an 82 game schedule, which he's never played, right? He's never this. I mean, we're like I've written a couple times now. We're sort of in uncharted waters with Cole Perfetti. We don't know how he's going to react. We know sort of how his struggles are going right now, and that's been well documented, obviously. But yeah, I think it. Yeah, I mean that's sort of it. Like I tend to agree. Like I think the grind has caught up with him, and so the Jets have to look elsewhere. Like I mean, I think it's incumbent on the Winnipeg Jets to look at their roster, to look at what they've done. I assume the hope that they'll get back to that 5-on-5 game, because I think this team understands what happens now if you don't, because you saw it last year, very quick playoff exit, all that sort of thing. Like I think there's a good understanding of that, and a lot of the players have spoken of that, right? Like last year they didn't really have the idea. I think one of the other things that we sort of missed too with this is that this is a tough system to play in, and this is the second year that these. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I think it was Adam Lowry, maybe a week and a half ago, sort of said like it's a tough game to play all 82, and part of the reason why the Jets losing a little bit and that sort of thing. Like we're in the part of the season where you see a lot of the big teams not really playing well, and then you see the Jets were just stacking wins, as you said earlier. But yeah, I mean, I think they have to look past Cole Perfetti at this point, right? To kind of tie this up, try and put a bow on this. Like I think at this point, you've seen where Cole Perfetti is. I think he'll be a fine 12th, 13th forward in the playoffs, but you have to prepare for a playoffs right now. Maybe not with either Perfetti or at least him being kind of in maybe a 4th line role or something like that. But yeah, I think he's kind of exposed a bit of a problem for the Jets, and that's that they need to kind of fill another kind of, well, in my opinion, a top 6 roster spot before next Friday. So.
Scott Billeck, our guest Saturday morning. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We are getting set for the Jets and the Carolina Hurricanes, set to get underway in about just more than 90 minutes time in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Scott, there seems to be a bit of a sacred pig in the Jetsland these days, and that is the union or the combination of Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor.
I thought I was the sacred pig. Dave.
I was going to say, I didn't know where Dave was going with the pig reference on a kosher hockey show.
Ezzy, you're a sacrificial pig. You're not a sacred pig. But the point is, Scott, that we gave Rick Bowness when he had Ehlers and Velarde and Scheifele playing so well together. And I know you asked him about that, and you challenged him a bit when we were in the Matt Frost Media Center last week with respect to the lines and that sort of thing. But when that line was playing so well and he broke them up, you said, okay, well, he knows that line works. They work well together.
Yeah.
You can always go back. That muscle memory is there. They've built that chemistry. He wants to build it in amongst other lines. Well, and you've detailed this significantly, this keeping this line together. They're getting scored on a lot more than you'd like a top line to be getting scored on. What is it that you think about this combination and this reliance on it? Because you could say, well, we know they can score goals, but also giving up. And in his type of system, that's not a good sort of mathematics.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, I really think he wants that top line to work with Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde, and that's sort of the issue, right? Like, I think part of the problem is you've asked the second line to kind of figure it out with Sean Monahan, and they have. Like, Nikolai Ehlers and Sean Monahan have really gelled together, and so now you're looking at it and like they like Nick on the left side on that line. It's one thing Rick Bowness kind of pointed out. He was like, moving Nick back to the left instead of playing him on the right kind of worked out well. And so now, do you move Ehlers back up to the top line and Connor down, and then you kind of refine that or try and find another chemistry between two new players that haven't played really at all with each other? That's an interesting thing. I mean, I think a lot of people have looked at, if you just look at the scorer sheet at the end of the night, I mean, coming into the Dallas game, Kyle Connor had been on a 4-game goal or 3 or 4 game goal scoring streak. And I think Mark Scheifele had a bunch of points in, his last 5 games. Velarde had obviously put up some points too, but most of that was power play, right? And
which
so
you
people
can keep together. You can keep power play the same.
And then this is, I had a tweet about this. I'm like, you don't have to change the power play to change the top line, right? But at the end of the day, like, they need, regardless, this is the problem, right? Like, Rick Bowness wants all of his lines to sort of look the same defensively, right? Like, and this is the problem with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele together sometimes, is that they don't look like everybody else. That line is consistent, even if they haven't been completely outscored, because this is the thing with this line. It's like they sort of get away with it because they have really good goaltending. And so they get out chanced and they get out attempted, they get outshot, all those sorts of things. But sometimes they'll still, at least 5-on-5, and I think we saw it against, was it Vancouver? There's a couple other games in there as well, where they outscored the opposition 5-on-5, and Rick Bowness is sitting there like, oh, look at this, this line won us the game. And it's like, yeah, they did, but it's like, are you going to get away with these things against a Vegas? Are you going to get a game, away from these? Well, you're obviously not going to get away with it against the Dallas. There's a lot of those things. Like, and one of the things that early on in the season that made the line successful, and even with Kyle Connor on it, was the fact that they were just playing some defense. And that's the line that's sort of gotten away from maybe the most of it all, in my opinion, is that, and I don't know what they want to do with that top line. Like, I know Rick Bowness says that they can keep going back. Like, it's, they have the option to throw Ehlers back up there. But
he
now
won't do it. That's the thing, Scotty. He
they rarely do it. Even against Dallas, right? Like, and I was wondering, okay, like, you're down 3-1, you're really chasing the game. You're starting to make maybe a bit of a push in that second period. Why not try Ehlers back up there and see what happens, right? I mean, they were trying other things. I mean, obviously Velarde was injured in the third period, so that changed kind of the dynamic. And now are you going to do any of that, right? Because if Velarde is going to miss a little bit of time, the idea of Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde just kind of isn't there anymore. So, I think Rick Bowness just wants that top line to work because he needs it to. I think.
And not to play devil's advocate, but they do have a little luxury of time to see if it can work or further work because of where they currently are in the standings.
I just think a lot of people argue that we know, because of all the time that we've seen, at least Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele play together, it just doesn't always work defensively, right? Like, they can be very good offensively, and we've seen that. I mean, we know those two read off each other very well. I mean, they play like, a couple brothers, right? Like, I mean, there seems to be a little bit of that telekinesis there, or whatever you would call it, between two players. Like, it's not Sedin like, right? But it's, they know where each other's. There's a lot of familiarity, a lot of comfortability, let's say there. But if you want to stay together, and maybe I don't know, because even then I say if you want to stay together, you got to play better together. But at the same time, when they don't play better together, they're still staying together, right? Like that's sort of the odd thing in this. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of shrug my shoulders. Like I don't really know I don't know what they want to do, and I think the more that they let this second line sort of marinate, and let's say they make an addition at the deadline, and then you got to try it again, right? You got to figure out, okay, well, they've had Alex Iafallo there, but I assume he's the sacrificial pig on that line, and he gets dropped down to the fourth line, and then they try and make it work. They don't want to change up that third line. We've seen that's sort of Rick Bowness's go-to when times get tough. And so that's the line that's sort of sticking together. None of
Scotty,
those
isn't
players,
this sorry to interrupt you? Isn't this a perfect opportunity to move Nino Niederreiter into the top six?
Yeah, I mean, this has been discussion in press row. It's there, right? But again, it feels like, and I think Rick Bowness has actually even commented on it, saying it's an option.
Or even Morgan Barron, Scotty, like that's
options.
That's like, I understand the Scheifele-Connor relationship goes back. What are we talking about here?
What
6 or 7 years?
Morgan Barron on the top line, though, like I just don't know,
But I think Nemesnikov makes a lot of sense. But the problem is, like, I think Rick Bowness, again, I think Rick Bowness is a great hockey coach, but I think especially with Velarde out of the lineup, I mean, is that not enough reason to put Ehlers up with Scheifele, because he's your best play driving? Like the analytics, we haven't even mentioned the 2 words expected goals, but Nikolai Ehlers is Mr. Expected Goals. He uses his speed and he has a great shot. He's a great playmaker. Like with Velarde out of the lineup, you need to bring some pizzazz to that top line, and that's what Ehlers brings.
And I wonder what we're gonna see. Obviously, I think they're gonna start tonight with Nemesnikov on the top line. Tonight, I say tonight. They start in 90 minutes with Nemesnikov on the top line. But I think you got to look at it, right? I mean, this is the thing. You're sort of now given this. I don't want to call it a luxury when a guy gets injured.
Well, but
sometimes
all these
injuries,
points.
right? Sometimes injuries lead to experimentation. Right?
I would throw more things at the wall to see what sticks, rather than just do sort of one small tweak that really isn't necessarily going to have a cascading effect.
And I think especially with Velarde out of the lineup, right?
Yes.
Because now you're losing one of your best forwards off that top line. He's really, I mean, I think you would agree, Scotty. He's the Jets' #1 weapon on the power play, and I mean, the Jets are going to need the Scheifele line, whoever is on it. If it's Connor and Nemesnikov, they're going to need that line to be good, because the Hurricanes are, arguably, they're for sure a top 10 team in the league. Yeah. Maybe even a top 5 team in the league. That's arguable. But I mean, with Svechnikov and Aho and Seth Jarvis, Marty Necas, like the Jets are going to need a big performance this afternoon / this morning, because the Hurricanes are stingy. They don't give I think they're 5th overall in the league in goals against. Yeah. So, I mean, they can score and they can defend, and they're not going to give you a lot. You can't expect, to necessarily score 2 power play goals this afternoon, Scotty.
Yeah, and this is partly the reason why I wonder if we aren't going to see anything today, because of how, I mean, you kind of just outlined it. This team is very offensive. This Hurricanes team, like they're shot happy. They like doing all those things. And Vlad Nemestikov moving up to that top line, I believe that's where he was in practice yesterday. Although the practice yesterday was kind of odd.
There's 4 guys missing, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah. So we'll see in warm up in an hour's time or so what the lines are really going to look like. But I wonder, the only problem, I think, that if you move Nikolai Ehlers up there now, you wonder about how much defense that line is going to play. And I think that's always been the issue when they have had Connor, Scheifele, and Ehlers on that top line is, how defensive is it going to be? One of the reasons why I think they moved Alex Iafallo up to where Perfetti was is because that line was slipping defensively.
I wouldn't even put, sorry, Scotty, I wouldn't even put Connor, Scheifele, and Ehlers together. I think this is maybe an opportunity to put Connor with Monahan. See what Connor and Monahan. Like, we haven't seen.
I would agree with you. Yeah. But I agree with you. I don't know. I mean, I just wonder what they're going to do. They're playing back to back, obviously.
Right.
And this is the tougher game of the two, although you can argue that the back-to-back games are hard, even if it is against Buffalo. But I agree. Like I think this should be a bit of a game of experimentation, but it's a weird look on March 2nd, right? To be talking about this team also experimenting with lines like this.
But it's a weirder look to be experimenting with lines when you're on the playoff and when you're on the playoff bubble, as opposed to when you're second in the Central Division and in a relatively confident position. I mean, and the if it wasn't for the injuries, you maybe aren't doing this necessarily, but they're definitely banged up entering today's game. So why not see if you could maybe find some money where you didn't expect to look for it?
Scheifele, Connor, Velarde has not worked at 5-on-5 now for what, 6 games, 7 games? Like, unless that changes, I don't understand why you keep going back to that, Scotty, unless, like you said, Rick Bowness really wants that to work. But the problem is, at a certain point, if it's 10 games, 15 games, and you've got 10 games left in the season, like, okay, it's time to put Ehlers up there with Scheifele and Velarde, or maybe someone else on the top line. But for sure, you've got to get Scheifele going, because Scheifele right now is just not playing well enough at 5-on-5. He's been fine on the power play, and he was excellent in that game against Vancouver. But the top line has to be going.
Yeah, Scott, I just want to interject quick, because I was going to say it was interesting to hear Sean Monahan talking the other day, and I know you were there, when he was talking about Nikolai Ehlers and playing with him, and how he's reminds him of playing with Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary. Yeah. So you do wonder if Sean Monahan on this team understands Nikolai Ehlers. So it's kind of ironic now we're talking about moving Ehlers when Monahan and Ehlers are now developing that chemistry that he had with, in Calgary with Johnny Gaudreau. So you may have found a player who actually could play and understand the game that Nikolai Ehlers plays.
Just play Ehlers on the top line and the second line, Dave. There you go. So problem solved.
Just double shift him the whole game. It is interesting, because it's a good point, and because I think what did Monahan say? He's kind of a unique player, right? Like, I mean, I'm not saying like he's just trying to find a word that isn't like, okay, he's tough to play with.
Yeah.
But this is sort of the thing. Like, Ehlers is very when you say that Alex Iafallo, what he brings to you is a very predictable game, you're saying that it's very consistent and it's very predictable, right? Like, where he's going to be, exactly what he's doing without the puck and what he's doing with the puck, right? Nikolai Ehlers is a bit of a wild card sometimes. Is he going to go end to end and score a goal on a 6-on-4 or a 6-on-5? With the delayed penalty, or is he gonna hit the blue line and try a clapper and it's gonna go out the other end of the ice, right? Like, you don't always know what Nikolai Ehlers is going to do with the puck, and that can be difficult to play with. And I agree with you. Like, I think this is the thing. You've sort of found this line, or these two at least, gelling together. And do you want to change that, right? Because this leads me back to the whole problem with this team. Is I think Rick Bowness wants this top line to work, with Velarde healthy, obviously, because it doesn't upset the rest of the lineup. Because you don't have to try and put a Nino Niederreiter up somewhere else, and you don't have to try and move Nikolai Ehlers away from this sort of relationship that he's forming on ice with Sean Monahan, and so, yeah. I mean, I think we're back to this point where you're really just trying to implore your top line to stick to the sort of process, right? Like, Kyle Connor was scoring a lot of goals early on in the season because they were playing a good style of game. It wasn't because he was sacrificing everything, right? This is like, it almost seems like this is sort of the eternal question with this team. Like, even now you don't have Mark and Blake anymore. Now it's Mark and Kyle, and they're sort of the duo that you want to keep together. And I think Rick Bowness believes in his mind a lot at the time that he sees those two as very much game-breaking guys. But at the same time, that they're also a very frustrating pair for him at times. So, yeah, I don't know. I was trying to read that one. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, like it's yeah, the whole thing's weird, and
it's weird, Scotty,
it's
because for the
hard to make
first
sense of,
45 to 50 games of the season, we were talking about maybe not 45 to 50, but 40 to 45.
Sure,
we were
first half
talking
of the
about
year.
how
Yep.
the power play has been so bad, and it was baffling how bad the power play is. And now it's the power play that's doing most of the damage for the Jets. And then at 5-on-5 right now, it seems like really the only line that is playing well on a consistent basis is the Monahan line, right? So it's like,
sure,
it's just
they can't ever get the two to combine together with the 5-on-5 play and the special teams at the same time.
I mean, that's just like, that's the evergreen problem that this Jets team has had for a long time.
That's right.
And yeah, just unsure. Like, I mean, you can say, oh, just play harder, play better defensively, all that. Sometimes you just always feel like the fit just isn't there, right? Like, and sometimes it's like, a broken clock is right twice a day. Well, sometimes, they really do get it right. But they just don't seem to. It's hard to find that. It seems that they have a really tough time finding that consistency. So
some players are paint by numbers. Some players are avant-garde painters. When Scott Billeck appears on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, he always paints a pretty picture regarding what's going on with the Winnipeg Jets.
The joy of hockey with Scotty Billeck.
There you go. Scotty, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Nice to be
Scott,
back.
Get some coffee. You gotta start your game story any minute now.
Oh, I know. These were rough. Plus, first day of F1, and I'm sort of waiting. First day of F1. Haven't looked. I'm trying not to look at social media. Don't want to know what's going on in the race. I got to watch it later. So,
well,
how is Jacques Villeneuve doing this year, Scotty?
I think he's a pundit now for some French channel. That's what he's doing. So he's not winning championships anymore. He's not gonna. Yeah, those days.
I can assure you, you're not going to get any F1 spoilers from the three of us.
That's good.
I think you're safe here.
This is the nice thing, right? Like, this is the nice thing about watching F1 is like, it's growing. People, the whole thing's growing. The Drive to Survive series and all that's really brought people along. But yeah, there's not a lot of people trying to spoil it for me because
Drew's a huge Michael Schumacher guy.
Oh, Michael Schumacher. Anyways, I mean, I totally respect Michael Schumacher. I'm just not.
No, that's
there.
Villeneuve and Schumacher.
Those he did, yes, like 11 years ago, and he's not well.
Right, he's not well, right? That's what I thought.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know that. Now I feel bad. I didn't realize that he was in
I knew exactly that, as he had no idea about that.
Yeah. It's perfect.
I'm a horrible person, Scotty.
I knew that long before today. So
thank you, buddy. Enjoy. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah,
there you go. Scotty Billeck joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We go to break. Much more to come. Stay with us. We're live on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See LindenMarketDental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Fanalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fanalytics.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake after a great game or great deal. It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at zappiagroup.com.
Bottom of the hour, shortly thereafter. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. Question or two up front. This coming from Ken Weeb moments ago. There is still a question or two up front, but the Jets will be without Brendan Dillon today. As he's under the weather, that means Logan Stanley draws into the lineup. So
Stanzilla.
The Winnipeg Jets are certainly going to be up against it this morning as they face off against the Carolina Hurricanes in downtown Raleigh. This would be a game you would want your full lineup for in any event against a very difficult opponent, but the Winnipeg Jets will not be at full strength. We don't know the forward situation yet, but no Brendan Dillon today on the back end. This is going to be a tough one for the Jets, guys. I mean, you can sort of almost see the cards being played before the game is actually underway.
Well, yeah, and that's because we don't know how many forwards are going to be out of the lineup, right? Like we assume Gabe Vilardi is going to be out of the lineup.
Yeah.
But the question is, how many other players are going to be out of the
Monahan,
lineup?
Appleton. Those are the guys
exactly.
who are
I
also
mean,
questionable
obviously Mason
yesterday.
Appleton. All due respect, I mean, you
not
could,
as significant.
Exactly. So, I mean, are we going to see Rasmus Kupari and Gus Bus in the lineup, or is it just going to be Kupari who presumably just goes in for a fourth line role? I think David Gustafsson isn't going into the lineup and starting on the top line either. But I know Brandon Dillon, you mentioned it, Drew. So Logan Stanley comes in, and we talked about it. Like the Hurricanes, for how many years have been that team that, you know, people wonder, can they take that next step and go all the way? They've just been kind of good enough to get to the kind of the second round or third round. But I wonder what they do at the trade deadline as well. I haven't checked their cap situation, but I don't think the Hurricanes are going to be, you know, one of the bigger, movers and shakers at the trade deadline. But you'd have to think, Dave, that, you know, they want to supplement their roster. I don't necessarily know that's a goaltender because Kachekhov's actually been really good. But you wonder, you know, what kind of moves they're going to make. Are they going to bring in maybe another forward, maybe a depth defenseman? But it's already a very deep team.
Yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes are a very good hockey team. They're a particularly good regular season team, and then they've always sort of flamed out come playoffs where they haven't necessarily had the goaltending or they haven't necessarily had that, you know, been able to get that clutch goal when they need it. But you remember last year, you know, they were without Svechnikov in their lineup. He was out. He had torn his ACL, if I recall correctly. So, you know,
that's correct. And he is healthy and he's at a point per game clip. So
right,
Svechnikov, look out for him on that top line.
This is another one
of the left winger on the Aho line,
which is what they go back to. You know, you look at the Dallas Stars on Thursday, and I don't want to harp on it, but you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, you know, today, and some of the other sort of top teams that the Jets are in the running with, and a lot of those teams don't have obvious holes. Like, look at the Dallas. I mean, I know, you know, the game happened on Thursday, but tell me where the hole is in the Dallas lineup, because I don't. There's not one that's, you know, vivid and glaring, you know, like there is on some other teams. Like the Jets seem to have a hole or two in their lineup that they would want to fix. You know, Colorado even has a hole or two in their lineup, maybe goaltending, maybe some depth scoring. They have a hole or two.
I wouldn't call the Jets a glaring hole though, Drew, just in terms of they just won 7 of 8 games. Like I realize
right now they have a glaring hole in their top 6. If you when compared,
especially with Vilardi injured. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're absolutely right though. Cole Perfetti, I mean, he is now a fourth line player on this team. That's just the fact, right? Like we don't need Daniel Dale to fact check that, Dave.
Yeah,
Cole Perfetti is on the fourth line right now. Could he get back into the top 6? Of course he could. But right now, I mean, look, I think Alex Iafallo is a great hockey player. I think he's but he's not a top 6 guy. I'm sorry, he just isn't. He's not going to give you enough offense Dave, in the top 6, once it comes to playoff time and you're playing Dallas or Colorado or Edmonton or Vegas or whoever the Jets end up facing on their playoff run. The interesting thing too about Carolina is they're kind of, they're almost on a, I would say, crash course with the Philadelphia Flyers in the second round. I mean, the Hurricanes, I think, are 5 points back of the Rangers, but it looks like right now, and boy, would that be a great series, guys? Hurricanes and Flyers in the first round. I mean, those
Flyers are slipping, and the Capitals, with their win last night, the Capitals are only 4 points behind Philly and have 2 games in hand. So the Washington.
Well, what I'm saying is more so the Hurricanes are kind of locked into second there, unless they go on a little bit of a run. I mean, the Rangers just keep winning, right? But the point I'm trying to make is, guys, the Jets are going to have to put out a better performance. They're for sure going to have a better first period, because that first period in Dallas, you guys talked about it at Boston Pizza Taylor on Thursday. I mean, you go down 3-0 to a Stanley Cup contender like the Stars.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to come back from that, Dave. So, I mean, the Hurricanes are just, I mean, we talked about Winnipeg, Seth Jarvis. He's having a breakout year. He's on pace for, I think, like 65 or 70 points.
Yep.
A product of the Rink Academy, right? So I think that, this is going to be a tough test for the Jets. And then you've got the Sabres coming up, tomorrow. So, I mean, you got to get some points here. You can't lose both of these games based on what happened Thursday night against Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, as he's 100% right. The fact is that you should be a pissed off team. You went up against a team, despite the fact that you have games in hand and you still control your own destiny against both Dallas and Colorado. You have to win those games as people make the observation, right? So that to me is what Winnipeg needs to start. They need to be an angry team, because you can't be, well, we won 7 of 9 now. Because ultimately, as we've discussed, if your power play wasn't firing or your goaltending wasn't playing up to snuff, you're probably not winning those 7 out of 9. So you did. You don't have to make excuses for it. But I thought the point Scott made earlier was they're probably happier with their game in that 0-4-1 stretch than they are
against the Leafs there. Yeah,
especially against the Leafs. But and Rick Bowness referenced that Leafs game. He said, look, we did everything but score, and like our scoring chances were off the charts. We just couldn't get a goal. But he said they liked the opportunities they created.
Mm-hmm.
So again, to me, it's a function of like the team has to, like, again, it's hard right now. And, I put up the comment by from the chat about whether the Jets are dealing with illness. We know that it cost Morgan Barron a game. It's cost guys, to miss some time. So clearly there's some sort of bug that was going through the room. But ultimately, again, you have to, everybody deals with something, whether it's, Tyler Seguin isn't playing or Chris Tanev doesn't have a visa, right, Ezzy? So every team has to deal with something, some intangible that could impact their lineup.
Does he have
but
a MasterCard?
Pardon me?
Does he have a MasterCard?
Ooh, Drew, terrible joke.
That was an Ezzy joke. I thought Ezzy was going to make that joke.
One second. Honest. Let's 1 second. And Drew's gone. Okay, Drew's back. But Drew, come on, that was a terrible joke.
I thought that was an Ezzy joke. I was
well, it's
waiting
fine
for
when
Ezzy
Ezzy makes it, but not you.
Tanev does have a scene card, though.
Okay, good. As long as he's got a scene card. Good.
Anyways,
maybe a co-op number.
So I mean, look, I know we're wanting to do some more trade stuff because, of course, the trade deadline is coming up. We didn't even talk about the Bettman appearance in Winnipeg. I mean, there really is, like, we're previewing the Jets and Hurricanes, and obviously that's important. But it's amazing to think there's so much going on within the last few days. And of course, with the upcoming trade deadline.
Okay, so let me talk about the. Hold on, let me play host here for a second, Drew. I never get to throw out the questions, even though I'm the only one that has the journalism diploma. What about Anthony Mantha? I mean, I think Mantha would be a great upgrade for the top 6.
Wait, are you answering now your own question?
I am. No, but Mantha's having a good year with the Capitals. Again, it seems like we talked about Alex Carrier. Who else did we talk about? Sean Walker. All these players are on teams that could make the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, Anthony Mantha, we know the Capitals have been trying to trade Mantha.
Though, or couldn't you see Anthony Mantha he's
a goal scorer, Drew. He can score.
I know, but there's always seems like the entirety of his career, dating back to when he was in Detroit, there's always seems like there should be more to him than there ever has been. Like that, he should be more adept, or that he can disappear.
He was on some pretty bad Wings teams.
He was, admittedly, but that he can disappear. I mean, the knock is that he can disappear for stretches at a time. Not to say that you shouldn't explore it or kick the tires on it, but he doesn't strike me as a Winnipeg Jets-esque player for whatever reason. And I've heard the name and I understand why, because you look at some of his numbers and everything else, and there should be an appeal there.
He's a skilled player. Like he's
big
not
body, big guy.
He's not. we could have that argument, whether acquiring Anthony Mantha is going to move the needle. But I think right now, with the development that Cole Perfetti is not scoring for the Jets on that second line, and he finds himself now on a fourth line, I think the Jets need a boost there. So, we mentioned Frank Vetrano, we mentioned Pavel Buchnevich. The problem, guys, I'm going to throw out Buchnevich. The problem is, are you not having to give up a pretty good forward prospect? I don't know if you have to give up Brad Lambert, but do you have to give up a second round pick and, Chaz Lucius and somebody else? St. Louis is not trading Buchnevich for nickels on the dollar.
Andy Strickland, who covers the Blues as much and is as connected as anybody in that market, I think he said something like they want 2 first-round picks for Buchnevich.
The Jets don't have that, right?
They do not. They do
can
not
give a high second-round pick because it's Montreal's second-round pick, of course. We know that, but I just don't know if the Jets want to give up that much. I mean, Brad Lambert to me seems like a guy that the Jets do not want to trade right now, even if they want to acquire a player like Buchnevich, because Lambert, his ceiling is so high, Dave.
When was the time? The Jets have never traded a young first-round pick, like a previous first-round pick that's still sort of trying to crack their way into the lineup. The Jets have never done it. The only one they traded, of course, is Jacob Trouba, but that was years after he had already been.
They had him for 8 years.
Right,
so.
exactly. He wasn't a young prospect at that point in time.
No.
He was on his way out of Winnipeg, and everyone knew that. So the Jets have been certainly reticent to trade one of their young guys.
Well, that to me is an interesting question, Drew, is which prospects are the Jets willing to deal? And we don't, of course, know that answer. But to me, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting thought experiment is to look at the Jets, stable of young prospects and say, well, are they will Ezzy? It's pretty obvious the ones that are, in my mind, untouchable. Rutger McGroarty, untouchable. You've got Colby Barlow, of course. He's been on a goal scoring streak. Seems like he's untouchable. Elias Salamonson.
I would disagree. I don't know if Barlow's untouchable, but
I think he's still too. There's still too much to his game for them to give up.
No, I'm not saying the Jets are going to trade him, but this is just me personally. I'm not speaking for Dave here.
Yeah,
I put Rutger McGroarty in a tier above Colby Barlow myself.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, and again, he's a year ahead of him, but I mean, I think that they really like what they've got in Rutger, but they're hoping that in Barlow they're going to have a goal scorer, a guy who can put that puck in the back of the net.
I don't think the Jets are considering trading Barlow right now. That's just my own speculation.
No, I know.
But I think Chaz Lucius and Brad Lambert have to be in the conversation if you're talking about it. Like the thing with Anthony Mantha is, guys, there might be salary retention, but what are you giving up for Mantha? Does a second round pick and maybe a later round pick get him? Like, I don't know if you have to give up a prospect to get Mantha.
You don't. You shouldn't give up a prospect to get a rental in Anthony Mantha.
Exactly.
You shouldn't
That's same thing with Frank Vetrano.
You're not giving up a prospect. You're not giving up an A prospect for any rentals.
Well, look at Dallas. They gave up a C prospect. Now Calgary and again, look, prospects are in the eye of the beholder, right? In the sense that one team's valuation could be significantly different. We know that. There's no surprise. It's why guys get drafted, first overall when other teams might have them 15th overall. I mean, teams value players and value their characteristics differently amongst the 32 NHL teams. So, again, what we see or what collectively, because I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, saw as like a more of a BC prospect. Maybe the Flames saw him. Clearly they saw him because that's what, you heard out of Calgary was that his value to them was significant for this deal, right, Ezzy? So that's always important to factor in. Like you could look at a guy and say, well, he's got this ward, or he's got this, but other teams may look at him and go, well, he's got this asset. Him in our system could look really good. So again, valuations are different amongst the 32 teams in the way they evaluate talent. I just think it's an interesting thought experiment to look at the prospects in the system. And, again, I tend to believe that the Brad Lamberts and the Colby Barlows and the Rutger McGroartys, those first overall picks, or not first overall, but first round picks, are sacrosanct within the framework of this. But look, the guys like Nikita Chibrikov.
I was going to say, would the Jets move Chibrikov to get Buchnevich?
I mean, I think you would have to, and I think it's probably worth it for a year plus of
exactly. You have the extra year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Chibrikov to me, Dave, you watch him way more than I do. I like him.
Yeah.
But again, if to me, Buchnevich moves the needle more than Anthony Mantha. Like Buchnevich is a really good player.
Is a significant top.
Doesn't he have 24 goals right now?
he's got a somewhere in that realm. I mean, I believe
he's got
scored
50 points.
Yeah, I mean, think about a 50-point scorer on this Winnipeg Jets team. That's the
One
Jets
of the
don't
top
have
guys.
those. They do, and that's a lot of that is a function of injury, of course, because Kyle Connor would have been at that level and Gabe Vilardi would have been at that level likely. But Buchnevich comes in
24, Dave, 48 points.
Yeah, I was right. 24.
Buchnevich comes in and changes the makeup of your team. You have a significant top six there with Buchnevich. You're no longer sort of filling in gaps. You're no longer sort of plugging and playing somebody from the bottom of your roster.
And he's a hard player to play against as well,
Right.
Buchnevich. He's got some bite to his game. People think of him just as kind of an exclusively as a goal scorer.
No.
Well, we just mentioned he's 24, so he can dish the puck as well. So to me, like, I think, Buchnevich, there's a reason why, a lot of people have him number one on their kind of want list, Jets fans trade deadline want list. It's
Ezzy,
Buchnevich.
Tikona Pauly, you've been on this train for a while now.
Well, Vetrano, I just like because he's a sniper and he's a guy that can probably play on your second power play unit if that's what you want. Like, look at Vetrano's not a great defensive player, and he's not the fastest
that'll go
player,
well in this system.
But Vetrano's a sniper, and that's what the Jets need. They need some more offense on their second line. So we'll see what happens. But Buchnevich, Vetrano, Mantha, Eberle, these are the guys we're talking about. Those are the players that are available, right?
The
we
point
think
is
that are
you
available.
The point is, it's glaringly obvious that, right now the Winnipeg Jets do need an addition to their top six. Cole Perfetti, and this isn't to say that you throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to Cole Perfetti, but his, as Scott alluded to, his first full season, it's getting to be too much of a grind for him, and he's plateaued and or diminished. So you can't expect him to find his game and improve upon it come playoff time when the game gets even harder. You need a seasoned veteran, not an old player, but somebody who knows what the game looks like come playoff time to slot into your top six. And I think you can certainly argue that you need that for your second pairing right side defense as well. I mean, there are vivid holes on this Winnipeg Jets team that they really have 6 days to address. And if they don't address them, it's going to be a significant question mark leading into the playoffs. Look, this Jets team is going to be a playoff team. There's no question about that. That discussion is gone by the wayside. You can get ready for the playoffs. But the question is, are they a truly competitive team in the Western Conference? And I think they only get to that point by adding a couple of players between now and Friday's deadline.
I want to throw one more guy out, boys. Riley Smith was in that article as well. The only thing with Riley Smith is I'm not sure if he has a no move or no trade or whatever. He could waive it, but doesn't he make a lot of sense to go back to Vegas? Like, I'm speculating here. A lot of people have Jake Gensel going to Vegas, but Riley Smith won a cup last year with Vegas. Doesn't it seem to make so much more sense that Smith just goes back to Vegas? But we'll see what happens. But Riley Smith is another one that I think would be a great acquisition for the Jets.
The trade deadline coming up on Friday. The Jets and the Carolina Hurricanes coming up in about 1 hour's time. When we come back on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Rachel Dory is going to join us. We'll talk all about what's going on around the league. It's a hectic time. It's a busy time. 6 days until the trade deadline. Games galore. Don't go anywhere. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on this Saturday morning.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Fanalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fanalytics.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake after a great game or great deal. It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at zappiagroup.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Saturday morning. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. The Jets and the Hurricanes in 1 hour's time. Of course, the Illegal Curve postgame show coming right up after that, 2:15 or so this afternoon. We'll be back to talk about the Jets and the Canes. We're pleased to welcome to the program the host, or one of the hosts of the Staff and Graph podcast, which is a great name. We're pleased to welcome Rachel Dory to the show. Rachel, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things?
Good morning. Yeah, things are good. I actually got to sleep in on a Saturday, so it's kind of nice. And yeah, I mean, we got hockey on all day, so it's like I roll out of bed, I get to watch hockey. I can't complain.
There you go. Exactly. No complaints at all on that front. Rachel obviously brought you on 6 days before the trade deadline, a very busy time period in and around the NHL as teams that are sellers are looking to extract the best price possible, and teams that are buyers are looking to fine-tune their roster for playoff runs. You and Mike Stevens, your co-host on the podcast, spoke about the Chris Tanev acquisition by the Dallas Stars. And here in Winnipeg, of course, we're very familiar with Chris Tanev, and the Jets and the Stars being division rivals. Are the Jets, know that they're a team that the Stars are a team they're going to have to get through. From your perspective, given the price or the low price that the Stars paid, your thoughts on the Tanev acquisition to sort of kickstart this week of what should hopefully be a frenzy of trades.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, I think outside of Noah Hannafin, and I don't believe Jacob Chikrin's on the market, I think that's the best defenseman available. And so for him to kind of go and be the market setter, and it wasn't necessarily as big of a price as we were all expecting, I think quite a few selling GMs were annoyed by the fact that was the return. I think it's a fantastic pickup for Dallas. They'd been rolling with a pair of Heiskanen and Harley, and I think both of those guys are so super talented that if you can maximize the time they're on the ice by splitting them up, and that's probably going to be the best way to approach the playoffs in terms of balancing your lineup. And so I think you can go Heiskanen Tanev, or you can go Harley Tanev, and then Lindell with the other one. And I think that's great because that also allows Ryan Suter on the third pair. I think it's a great pickup for Dallas. They didn't really have to give up a lot, which kudos to Jim Nill, just an absolute masterstroke. But yeah, it's going to be a key piece for Dallas down the stretch here.
Let me ask an addendum to that one, because you mentioned that, the Stars didn't have to give up a lot, and they certainly didn't. Because, I mean, to get Chris Tanev without giving up a first-round pick, I think a lot of people thought it was a surprise. Why is Calgary in a rush to make that trade that early when it didn't really sort of blow anyone away with the return? It seems to me like that's a trade, that deal is one that Calgary should sort of, put on the side table to see if they can get more closer to the deadline, when everyone knows Tanev is basically the cream of the cream when it comes to defensemen on the market.
Yeah, I think there's really only one explanation, and it's that Chris Tanev plays a very hard game, and Calgary's got a couple tough games before the trade deadline, and I think there's maybe some fear that he might block a shot off his face and get hurt, or he might take a couple of cross checks to the ribs. Like anything can happen. And then you lose out on that asset. So I think if you have a deal, I personally would have waited for a better deal. But I think if you have a deal that you're comfortable with and you really are confident that it's not going to get any better, not that I would have been in this case, then I can understand why you're pulling off the deal. Because, I mean, that's a guy that could get hurt. And you're kind of screwed. And so I could see that being the thinking for Calgary. I probably would have held out at least a few more days just to see if I could get something better.
Rachel, I promise we're going to ask you about other teams aside from the Winnipeg Jets, but we got to stick with the Jets because right before you came on, we were talking about the trade deadline. What else, right? That's what only I pretty much see like the January come, and then it's like all we talk about is the trade deadline for 2 months in addition to the games. But what do you see the Jets doing? Because obviously the Jets top six is not clicking right now. Gabe Vilardi's not going to play this afternoon versus Carolina. Nikolai Ehlers might not play as well. There's a few players that are game time decisions, but what players do you see that are available that would be good fits for the Jets? Like Anthony Mantha's name is out there. Pavel Buchnevich, his name is out there. These players also, might end up sticking with their current teams because they're in the playoff race. But what do you kind of see happening? Should the Jets get a defenseman maybe?
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, they're set in the most important position, and that's in goal. So at least they don't have to worry about that. You got the basically the Vezina winner chilling in the cage there, so you're good. I think any team that's a contending team wants to shore up their defense, right? You want to have probably 8 guys that you're comfortable playing heading into the playoffs, and so I could see them getting a defenseman or two. Like just depth guys, right? Whether it's like a Joel Edmondson, maybe a Nick Seeler. Nick Seeler is going to be a bit of a price to pay, but I could see them going and getting guys like that. Maybe a David Savard if there's going to be money retention. Basically shoring up the bottom of the lineup. As for the forwards, I would like to see them go at Adam Henrique. I think with Cole Perfetti and the season that he's had, you've got Mark Scheifele and you've got Adam Lowry. But you need like 3 absolutely solid centers. And I think Adam Henrique could bring a little bit of offense, maybe balance out that lineup a little bit more. And you go from there. I do think they need some help. But at the same time, like you also have to play Nikolai Ehlers more. And if he's not going to play today, that's different. But generally speaking, like talking about a guy that should be on the number 1 power play unit 100% of the time. He should be getting consistent top 6, if not top line minutes. And he needs to be out there in all the key situations. And so I think part of this is deployment. But another part of it is the fact that I do think they need probably 1 or 2 defensemen and a second line center.
Saturday morning, you're watching the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Rachel Dory is our guest. She is one of the 2 members, along with Mike Stevens, as the Staff and Graph podcast.
Rachel, got to ask you about Nashville. Is there a team that nobody talks about, but people should be talking about more than the Nashville Predators? I mean, they've reeled off 7 straight wins. Their farm club didn't have a loss in 2024. I think they were 18-0-0 for a while. So there's something good going on in Nashville, but not a lot of people seem to be talking about it. Is this something that, again, obviously with Barry Trotz from Dauphin, Manitoba, he's at the helm there, but is this a team that, do you think they're ahead of what they were expecting to be, or do you think they're kind of on pace where they wanted to be?
I think Nashville's a bit of a different situation because usually if you're talking about UC Saros being traded, you're like, oh, they want to be bad. Like what are they going to do? Play their backup? No, they're going to call up Yaroslav Askarov, and similar to when it went from Rene to Saros, there's not going to be a drop off. It's probably not going to be a major drop off between Saros and Askarov. Like I think Askarov's that good, but Nashville's interesting, right? Because I think there were heavy rumors pretty much up until last week and a half or so. Saros was on the market, Carrier was on the market, that Nashville was going to be looking, and they wanted to kind of give their younger players an opportunity. And they had a great draft at this past draft, getting Matthew Wood and Tanner Molendyk, 2 kids that I was a big fan of. I think when you look at this in Nashville, they're doing what Dallas did a few years ago with Robertson, Hintz, where they had like 1 season where they weren't great, and that was the year that Dallas got Heiskanen. But they've had a bunch of seasons where they've drafted in the 20s, and they've gotten guys like Jake Ottinger, Maverick Bork, Logan Stakehoven was a 2nd-round pick. And so I think Nashville's a candidate to be that, where they already have Philip Forsberg. They've got a couple guys, obviously Roman Josi. And you can sort of trade out some guys because you have young guys waiting to come up. So I don't think Nashville's actually that far away from being a contender. The problem is they don't have that stud up front yet. They need somebody to kind of come into that. But Nashville's an interesting team ahead of the deadline because like they could just as soon lose 3 straight and Barry Trotz goes, okay, I'm trading Carrier and Saros. But I think if they continue on this hot streak, they're not trading anybody out, and they might be someone you don't want to see in the first round.
Rachel, if you're the Calgary Flames, I mean, we know all the names that have been bandied about there, and it's just been so much noise in that organization. And Jacob Markstrom sort of yesterday came out and spoke about it and the fact that his name has been bandied about, and he's going to New Jersey, and he's not going to New Jersey, and then he's staying in Calgary, and maybe he's not staying in Calgary, and who knows what's going to happen there. But if you're the Flames, and you have Markstrom under contract for the next couple of years at the $6 million price, and you don't really know where you're going as a franchise, are you better off keeping him, or are you better off trying to extract as much value from a team like New Jersey, for example, and dealing him away?
I think given where Markstrom's contract is and given where Calgary is, they're not going to be ready to contend when he's still playing at his best. I would be extracting value here. I think a team like New Jersey needs a goaltender. They're going to be willing to pay for it. I mean, like, look at last night. Like, they're really struggling right now. They cannot keep the puck out of their net. And so I'm Tom Fitzgerald. I recognize that it's not just my coaching. My goaltending and my defense have not been very good. Obviously, they're missing Dougie Hamilton. But I think with Calgary's situation right now, they are not going to be a Stanley Cup contender, or at least by my estimation, while Jacob Markstrom is on this contract performing at a high rate. And so I think you should be trying to extract value from a team who does need a goaltender. And at the end of the day, you should be trying to maximize the value of all of the players on your roster. If you have the opportunity to improve your roster, whether it's now or in the future, that's always something you should be taking a look at.
Rachel, I got to ask you about the Avalanche because, Zach Parise is actually one of my favorite players of all time. Ask Dave and Drew. You mentioned the Devils. I'll admit I'm a Devils fan.
Yeah.
And that trade has actually worked out pretty well. I mean, Parise is 38, 39 years old. Didn't he have a couple of goals the other night? So that trade was good. But I think you'd agree that a lot of, signing. But I think you'd agree that second line center is in need. Ryan Johansson has not worked out. I thought he was going to be better for the Avalanche this year, but goaltending is also somewhere where people think that the Avalanche might make a move. Like, who do you kind of have as a good fit for the Avalanche? Because there's no shortage of names out there, but it's like musical chairs. It's really hard to figure out, who the Avalanche have their eye on.
Yeah, the one thing that the Avs are always going to do is have guys that analytically are at least somewhat sound. I could actually see them going back to the Eric Johnson potentially. I could see them going the Adam Henrique route. I do think that they're going to make an upgrade somewhere on their roster, if not use quite a few of the prospects that they've drafted. They've done a really good job drafting. I think they're going to use some of that ammo. They showed that you can win without a goaltender being a Saros or a Bobrovsky of last year kind of thing. Vegas showed last year that you don't need like your goaltender to backstop you all the way. Like you can get there with good goaltending, right? Just reliable goaltending. And I think Georgiev can provide that. I think they do need like that second line center position is an area they just have to address. I think they need more depth up the middle. And so I look at a guy like Adam Henrique and I'm like, I like him. If they want to go with the winger route, then yeah, Pavel Buchnevich is a guy that I think would be a great fit. But at the end of the day, you need another center if you're Colorado, I think. You've got to have some difference maker. You see the difference between 2 lines and 3 lines that can really compete and put the sticks to teams. That's the difference in a lot of playoff series.
Oh, Rachel, we've been watching the Buffalo Sabres futility for some years now, 12 straight years. And we have Marty Baron on all the time and nobody knows that team better than Marty. But it just seems like every year you're like, okay, they've got a good crop of young players to come into the system, a number of guys who played here in Manitoba, whether it was with the Winnipeg Ice or otherwise, but what do you see in Buffalo? Because again, every year you're like, this is going to be the year they're going to take that step forward. They got
Rachel, Dave wants you to talk about Zach Benson here. This is what he's setting you up for.
No, but I just mean just from the totality of the Sabres. Like, what is the plan do you see in Buffalo? Because again, it just seems like it's another lost year in Western New York.
Yeah, I guess I don't agree with the public sentiment about Buffalo. I think a lot of people are really rushing. If you look at the Buffalo Sabres, the teams that go from like worst to first generally have a generational talent. So like, actually not even, because the Edmonton Oilers had Draisaitl and freaking McDavid and have had years where they were futile because their management. I think in Buffalo, Jack Eichel was great. Yeah, that's setting that aside. He's not a generational talent. Like when the Leafs put Austin Matthews in the lineup, they went to the playoffs that year. They had Matthews and Marner in their rookie year. They went to the playoffs that year. It wasn't really a question. Whereas with Buffalo, they've had a ton of high picks. None of them netted a Bedard, a Matthews, a McDavid, a McCarr, like that kind of pick. So I think you need them to develop and really sort of come together. Like if you look at the steps that Rasmus Dahlin took last year and this year, he's going to be in the Norris conversation for years to come. Owen Power is only in his second year. Mm-hmm. And that's a guy that once he gets his footing underneath him, if you think about a guy like Charlie McAvoy, once he really got his footing, he's been one of the best defensemen in the league ever since. So he's going to have another year under his belt. And I think when you go into your third full season, that's when you really start to take a step forward. Zach Benson is making me look very good right now. I appreciate him very much because I said there's no way he should have been available where he was. And the fact that he's come in and made an impact, Tage Thompson's obvious development. So I think you need time for some of these younger guys to really develop. You need Peterka to take another step. You need Levi and Luukkonen to take more steps forward. And I think in Owen Power's third full year in the league is probably because he's like the last of that prospect generation, I'll say. That's when you expect them to start making the playoffs. I never expect non-generational talents to be able to drag their team to the playoffs in the first year. I mean, yeah, Bedard's been hurt, but like he's not even going to do that. And so I think there's always time that's needed for prospects to acclimate. If you look, Montreal's the same way. Like right now, Slavkovsky, I think we can kind of say like probably not worth the first overall pick yet, but that doesn't mean he can't get there. Cole Caulfield needs time. Nick Suzuki needed time. Arber Xhekaj needed time. He wasn't even a draft pick. Like you just need more time when you don't have the high end skill.
Rachel, by the way, hold on 1 second. You mentioned Slavkovsky. I'm not sure if you saw my tweet or you remember my tweet. I was serious about that. For those who don't know what I'm talking about here, I don't even know who you got into it with, Rachel, on the Habs side, but somebody got really defensive about Slavkovsky and was saying some not too nice things to Rachel. So Rachel agreed to donate money. I think it was $5 a point or something like that for the rest of his points. So whatever it is, I'll match it and I'll give it to the Canadian Mental Health Association.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, he only has 2 points in the last 2 weeks, so
that's
not
$10
great.
more than Ezzy has.
Well, we'll give a minimum 100 or 100, whatever it is. But I mean, it's just funny that I was following that. I'm like, come on, I got to help Rachel out here. She's not saying that Slavkovsky is a bust. Like Montreal fans are just, as you know, very sensitive.
Oh, so sensitive. Like we don't need to be evaluating people's ability to win a battle. You're a first overall pick. You should be scoring at a point a game, and I don't want to hear it until then. Now, I think he had like a 29 game portion of the year where he's scoring. So I don't think that he can't get there. It's just right now it doesn't look great.
Yeah. Let's not forget how young he is, right?
Exactly. Like there's time. I'm giving him time to get there, but if you look at some of the other first overall picks, like they were impact players sort of right away. If he's an impact player next year, like, okay, great. There you go. He's proved that he's worth the pick. Right now I'm saying he hasn't. I never said he was like going to be a bust for his whole career. It's just selective hearing.
Rachel, last question for you here. I look at Edmonton, you talking about generational talents. Well, we know the generational talents that are on that roster.
Yeah, Zach Hyman.
Yeah, that's funny, Ezzy. But you look at that team, and it's basically the same team as last year's team that was eliminated, I believe, in the second round. Why should their expectations be any different this year than it was last year for the Oilers?
Well, I think the expectations last year for the Oilers were Stanley Cup or bust. And so
Right.
I think that they're that this year. The problem that they have is that when Ekholm and Bouchard aren't on the ice, they can't defend to save their lives. And that's a problem, right? They need to address that. They need a Carrier. They needed a Tanev, someone like that. But over and above that, if you could pry UC Saros out of Nashville, that has to be where the assets go. And they can't be anywhere else. Like there's Stuart Skinner, sure, like you can have a great run, but if anyone's going to try and look me in the eye and say that UC Saros isn't a major upgrade over Stuart Skinner, I'm just going to like laugh. Like we're talking about one of the best goalies in the league.
And Vegas got away with it last year with sort of not name brand goaltending because of the defense in front of us. Exactly. You can't have both. You can't have average goaltending and average defending.
No, if you have basically like 3 guys who could probably play on Team Canada on your back end, at least 2, like you're gonna have a better time defensively. And if you also have Bruce Cassidy coaching your defensive system, he's one of the best defensive minds in the game. Like, you probably don't need Patrick Waugh tending the goal for you. But if you're gonna have 2 good defensemen, you might need a better goaltender.
That's hockey math right there in a nutshell. Rachel Dory, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a great appearance, your first appearance here on the show, but we'll be sure to do it again real soon. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, Rachel. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. There she goes, Rachel Dory, joining us this morning on the show. Great guest. Always thrilled to welcome new people here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And that's
I thought we might have had Rachel back in the radio days, but I couldn't remember.
I don't believe so, but the days definitely blend together. If you ask me what I had for dinner last night, it's definitely a blank. So ask me what happened a few years ago. I have no clue whatsoever.
And regardless, I mean, Rachel is super. You can tell she's very well spoken, super smart, knows a lot about hockey. She can break down every team, and you should definitely listen to the Staff and Graph podcast with Mikey Stevens. He used to write for the Hockey News. I'm not sure if he used to write for The Athletic, but they do a great job. Great to have Rachel on. Only 6 days left, boys. We're going to find out very soon what trick Chevy has up his sleeve.
Will we be doing a pop-up show is the question.
Well, we'll see. Time will tell on that front. We'll see if the Jets
we only have like 8 post-game shows.
I know. We only have a post-game show coming up.
Actually, no, this week is actually not that big. If he doesn't do it this weekend, then we've only got a Tuesday and a Friday. So we got some time.
We got Tuesday, we got Friday late, we got Saturday morning, and we got Saturday late. So
I understand.
Okay, just want to make
sure. I agree with Rob about Drew's tan. Like I'm starting to think that Drew is visiting Fabutan during the day to keep that tan going.
I do not fake bake. I tan very easily.
But you wake and bake,
and you bruise like a peach.
I bruise like a peach and I tan very easily, as anyone knows or seen my dad before. He also has a bit of a darker complexion. So both of us, when we hit the sun, as my wife likes to say, I brown up like a biscuit very quickly.
And then you eat a biscuit.
And then, of course, she says it while I'm eating a biscuit. Because biscuits are a staple of the Mindell family diet.
I have been lucky enough to eat Laura's biscuits. I'm a big biscuit guy. Like. Warm,
a nice warm biscuit. Laura's biscuits?
No.
I'm done.
No.
Show's over.
Guys, come on. Where's your head at?
Dave and I went the exact same spot, the exact same minute. Yeah, Ezzy, how could you?
Ticona Polly's waked and baked.
A Triscuit, a biscuit. I'll take a Triscuit or a biscuit.
Yeah. Anyways, the Jets and the Hurricanes. Before I'm getting you off whatever you were going there with.
Dave's mind is already on that Moose game this afternoon.
Yeah.
No, Dave's mind is on the fact that I've got like 20 minutes to get this podcast up, so some folks can download the podcast before we have to start watching that Jets game. And then also figuring out when I'm going to go from here to Canada Life to set up, and I will
put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
I like when it catches me off guard. Like now it's not just me doing it. So even I get caught off guard by the Minuk.
That's what happens when you give me admin powers, Drew.
I don't know how much longer you're going to keep those admin powers.
I can't believe we haven't taken those away yet, to be perfectly honest.
Well, the Moose game to answer Ticona Polly is at 2:00. For the record, actually, it's a good segue, though, even though there's nothing Moose related to talk about, because we've
We thought we had
detailed
tickets
it.
to give away.
Well, we gave away tickets already for today, but I do have 2 more tickets for tomorrow afternoon's game.
I'll take
2
them.
p.m. You are not eligible, but 2 p.m. if anybody wants to go to the Moose game.
I want to know which kid Ezzy isn't bringing. That's what I want to know. If he's only getting 2 tickets, which kid aren't you bringing?
Exactly. So if you want to go to the Moose game, send me an email, dave@illegalcurve.com, or slide into my DMs at ICDave. Moose and Stars, that'll be concluding a 6-game set in Winnipeg for the Manitoba Moose, and then they head out on the road. I believe they'll practice on Monday and then head out on Tuesday, and then I think they play 6 on the road. But
So speaking of today's game, and we talked about it at the beginning of the show, Stankoven was just a paper transaction. He's been recalled back to the Dallas Stars. So he will not be in the lineup for the Texas Stars this afternoon.
Jim Nill just saved $10,000 on the salary cap.
Matt Hyman is borrowing Ezzy's jokes, although he credited Ezzy. He said, is Tyrell CCM playing? Tyrell Bauer is not playing today. He's dealing with a back issue, as is why Bon Giovanni's issue is in his back. He's not playing. Of course, Danny Zhilkin, the 2022 third rounder, he is done for the season. He had shoulder surgery earlier this week. So those are your updates for the Moose. And like I said, they'll be, as Drew just detailed, a little breaking Mindell Moose minute. No Stankoven for the Texas Stars. That's a huge boost. He hasn't really burnt the Moose too badly, but he's always a threat when he's in the lineup. So that's a benefit for them. And yeah, like I said, it'll be a big test because they need to start putting some points on the board, and they want to be a playoff team. And right now they're not. So that's what they need to do. So they need to win.
Deal with Maverick Bork. By the way, is there a better name in hockey right now than Maverick Bork?
It's a pretty good one. I will give you that.
So you mentioned the playoffs. I mean, the Moose certainly have not had the year that they want, but they
can't win at home.
I know they can't win at home. You chronicle that every time you're there. Moose lose again at home, but they are still in the playoff race because the bottom of that Central Division is so pretty terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago, Iowa, and Manitoba essentially are fighting for that 5th spot. So, I mean, Grand Rapids, similar to Milwaukee, actually, Milwaukee's lost a little bit. Milwaukee being the Nashville Farm Club, Detroit's Farm Club in Grand Rapids. I think they've won. I think their streak right now is like 24 games straight or something like that with at least a point. So they're on fire, as are like I said, Milwaukee, even though they've lost 2 in the last little bit. But then again, it falls off. Texas is good. And you also wonder what it's going to look like for the playoffs, right? For some of these teams and how they'll do. So these 3 clubs are fighting and vying for that 5th spot right now in the Central. Not super exciting, but again, you want these prospects to get playoff games. It's important for them. So the Moose, you hope they will be able to stabilize things and pick up some wins against Texas, and more importantly, go on the road. And I believe they play Milwaukee and Iowa. So those are the teams that you want to make some hay against, Central Division rivals. So we'll see what they can do. But we'll see how many of these guys are still on the team, Ezzy, come next week when the trade deadline elapses.
That's very true.
Well, especially with injuries, you might have a player like Axel Jonsson-Fjäll be called up. I don't think it's going to happen today. But you never know.
Well, it's unlikely that he's going to get called up and be able to get to Raleigh, North Carolina in the next 30 minutes. I'm not.
AJF is going to be playing at Canada Life this afternoon.
I'm not an aviation expert, but I'm pretty sure they won't be able to travel to Raleigh in time to get to the game in 30 minutes from now.
But you have flown on a private jet before, though.
I haven't, in fact, flown on a private jet. That is a fallacy. That
Sheldon hasn't invited you on Mindell Air.
No, he hasn't. But I would like that. I'm happy to have that change. If anyone has a PJ lying around that you want to chauffeur me around the country, and that would be fine with me. No further update yet from from Raleigh, North Carolina. We know that
illegalcurve.com. That's where you're going to find it out, folks.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Go to illegalcurve.com after the show wraps in a couple minutes, and we'll have the latest on the Jets lineup for this morning's game against the Hurricanes. We know no Brendan Dillon, so that's been confirmed. Brendan Dillon under the
Kenny
weather.
Weeb confirmed that. I just checked Kenny Weeb's Twitter account because I believe he's the only traveling media covering the Jets, if I'm not mistaken. And I do think that he hasn't tweeted or messaged any of us, or he hasn't posted anything. So his most recent tweet was about Brendan Dillon. So like you said, Logan Stanley in for Dillon, most likely no Velarde, and we'll have to wait, the next half an hour to find out who else is out.
Yes, the details will come out momentarily. Keep it locked on illegalcurve.com. Dave will have it ready for you. And of course, the Illegal Curve post-game show, which is going to get underway in about, let's say
10 minutes.
hours from now, right around 2:15 this afternoon. A weird one for the game and a weird one for the post-game show.
Should we just keep the show going, Drew, and we'll just go right into the post-game show? We'll do like a live play-by-play of the Jets-Hurricanes game, and then we'll just do the post-game show. So just keep it rolling.
Do you want to get divorced?
No, I like my wife.
So you should probably go home for a couple hours and see your family would be my
Give her a massage.
There. But okay, whatever you're going to do, that's up to you. I don't really need
right,
the details.
Buy her some flowers.
Okay, goodbye, everybody. Big thanks to our sponsor. Would
ear.
Ezzy please be quiet? Dave, can you mute him, please? Thank you.
Muted.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that. We want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Grid Park, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rollies Transfer, and of course, Farmery Beer. These fine companies help support Illegal Curve. They make this show, the post-game show, and the website a possibility. We will be back in a couple hours' time around 2:15 for the post-game show. In case you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, and leave us feedback here, there, and everywhere. In case you missed either Scotty Billeck or Rachel Dory or any of this morning's show, the instant replay starts immediately after I hit end stream, and of course the podcast will be available shortly. We'll see everybody at around 2:15. Go have a good couple hours, enjoy the game. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.